Well, religion is a very complex subject that has been studied by many disciplines, by humanities, by social sciences, and increasingly also by hard sciences and natural sciences. So, the specific approach of semiotics is, of course, to focus on signification, communication, languages, systems of science that are adopted by each religion or religious community, but also to challenge the common disciplinary boundaries. So to promote interdisciplinary research on religion, and also to promote comparative research and comparative investigation between religious topics, religious issues, and phenomena that can be compared with religion, although they don't normally fall within the category of religion. Well, there are many possible intersections and cross-fertilizations because religions do not develop into a void, so they need to express themselves, manifest themselves. Religious communities adopt different systems of science, and as a consequence, the first possible cooperation is between, on the one hand, the semiotics of religion, and on the other hand, for instance, visual semiotics, or the semiotics of music, or the semiotics of literary texts. Let's say specific semiotic applications to the study, investigation, interpretation of the different kinds of texts that are adopted by religious community. Other possible cross-fertilizations are also with branches of semiotics that study cognition, that study also the biological evolution of human habits and behaviors, but it is a different level, so it's more a theoretical level. Well, it's hard to say because the global religious panorama is very various. So it depends on where we situate ourselves to observe religion, whether in Western Europe, for instance, or in the Western world, or in the Eastern world, or let's say in non-technologically advanced areas of the world. So the panorama is very various. At the same time, we can suppose that there is a strong impact of the evolution of communication technologies on religion. This has always been the case. The introduction of writing, for instance, has changed religions. Then religions have been changed by the introduction of a massive scale book printing, and probably at the moment religions are undergoing major shifts and changes due to the massive digitalization of culture and especially communication. So one of the trends is certainly related to this idea that the signifiers of everything are getting digitalized, and as a consequence, contents are seen as more and more portable. So religious texts, religious images, religious artifacts can travel across cultural frontiers and cultural borders much more than before. And at the same time, as always in the history and the semiotics of culture, when there is a trend, there is also a counter trend. And so this increased portability of religious signifiers is also producing a major emphasis on the relation between religion and identity. So religious science, religious texts are used more and more, and sometimes also aggressively so, to create some, let's say, entrenched identities, both personal identities and community identities. Well, personally, I don't see semiotics as a sort of an applied ethics. So, to me, it's not a purpose of semiotics to indicate the way or the path to a better humanity, because, of course, semiotics is a social science that see how different ideologies compete with each other without necessarily taking stance for any of them. And of course, as a person, as a scholar, I might have my ideas and my favor a peaceful understanding of religion. But as a scholar of religion, as a historian of religion, I also know that religions are often also connected with force, with violence, with conflict. So I think that one contribution of semiotics, nevertheless, might be that of clarifying our ideas as regards the boundaries between different religious ideologies and how they compete and how they also overlap with other kind of conflicts which are not necessarily in the religious domain but fall in other dimensions of social life. So many conflicts and many, let's say, aggressive manifestations of religion that might seem at the first glance connected with spirituality are sometimes expression of other undergoing conflicts that use or even hijack religious discourse in order to coat these underlying conflicts. And so semiotics can give a contribution to pinpoint the interaction between, let's say, different levels of social animosity. Oh yeah, it's a long story. But as regards semiotics, as a young student already in high school, I was familiar with Umberto Eco, who was a very famous intellectual, one of the most famous intellectuals in Italy in the second half of the 20th century. So I had the opportunity of reading his books. So when I went to university, I started studying communication studies. It was a new field, a new branch of scholarship at that time, and semiotics was central for communication studies. So, but at the same time, I was also fascinated by one aspect that really suited my personality. I'm a very curious person. I cannot choose among different, let's say, paths of scholarship. I'm interested in anything and everything. So semiotics was actually the good discipline for me not to choose what not to study. So it allowed me to study pretty much everything. And but I had to focus at some stage. So I was extremely interested in the arts. I came across a professor whose name was Omar Calabrese at the University of Siena, who was very charismatic, and he influenced me, and he also transmitted to me his passion for the arts. I was also very interested in the arts because of my upbringing and my being born in a city that is very Baroque and where Baroque art is very present, the city of Lecce in southern Italy. So my interest in religion was not direct, it was a consequence of my interest for the fine arts. And I realized very soon that it was impossible to semiotically understand the meaning of fine arts, for instance in Baroque Italy or Baroque Spain, without knowing the history of religion, even theology, the history of religious ideas in depth. And this was before September 11. Then September 11 happened and changed pretty much everything. Before September 11, when I would say to my fellow students that I was studying religion through semiotics, they would ask me if I wanted to become a priest. That was the conception. Religion had been marginalized in Italy, especially theology, as a scholarly field. But then after September 11, people realized that religion was actually still playing an enormously central and sometimes even dangerous role in present-day societies. So I started to study religion both as a, let's say, underpinning ideological background of the fine arts, and is an important ideological agency of a contemporary socio-political life. Well, there are some excellent books that are available now in English or in other languages. Certainly in English, well, I am not going to recommend my own books out of modesty, of course, but I would certainly recommend books of my colleague Robert Yeli, who's a professor at the University of Munich, and he has a book which is a sort of an introduction to the semiotics of religion, which is published by Bloomsbury. Another scholar and fellow semiotician, Fabio Rambelli, in the same series has published an excellent introduction to the semiotics of Buddhism. Then another fellow semiotician, Mohammad Bernoussi, Fabio Rambelli is a professor of Shintoism at the University of Santa Barbara, California. Another fellow semiotician, Mohammad Bernoussi, is a professor at the University of Meknes in Morocco, has given to semiotics excellent contributions on the semiotics of, let's say, the Islamic civilization. I would recommend the studies of my colleague at the University of Turin, Ugo Volli, who has published enormously on the semiotics of Judaism and Jewish civilization. Also my young colleague and semiotician, Jenny Ponzo, has been working a lot on the semiotics of Catholicism, the semiotics of sanctity. So there are many contributions now for those who want to investigate this field, and I also encourage all the viewers of this interview to get an interest in semiotics of religion. We still have a lot to do, and there is a lot of research to be done in this specific field.